Hey guys, what is going on? It's an awesome day. It's starting to get cool up here in Pennsylvania. Um, that means fishing's changing all over, so it's probably getting cold for a lot of you folks. Time to change up your gear, do a few things different than you normally are, and go for some different results. So, we have a cool one. I feel like I say that all the time. We have a great podcast, regardless this week with Kyle. We're talking about Chatterbaits. He shows some particulars that he likes, some individual gear that he's really fond of. And you know the drill. I'm not going to belabor the beginning of the intro here, but as you always know, have you gone to TackleBuys.com? Have you bought new gear recently? If so, you probably paid too much. So the next time you need gear, you have to check out TackleBuys.com. Otherwise, you are spending way too much money on gear, and you don't need to waste money on gear that you could be buying extra worms or extra hooks or whatever you need. Get more for your money and check out tacklebuys.com. We have thousands and thousands of sale listings compiled from across the web. So that's everything from rods and reels to nets to PFDs to whatever. I mean, pretty much everything you could ever need out there on the water, in a canoe, in a kayak, from the bank, whatever. You're gonna find there, and we have. So check out tacklebuys.com and save some money on the gear you already love. So we're gonna dive right into this episode with Kyle, and I hope you enjoy.
Oh man, tonight we have Kyle Strother on with us. He and you know what? I seem like I always hook up with all these cool guests in the Kayak Bass fishing groups, and Kyle is no exception. That's where I found him, and I guess another avid bass fisherman. We're gonna have to diversify a little bit going forward, but I'm definitely excited to have you on tonight, Kyle. If you would say hello, man.
Hey, what's going on? It's nice to finally meet you, Nate.
Definitely, definitely. So, Kyle, where did fishing all start for you? Well, way back when you just got into it.
Oh man, I've been fishing since before I can remember, I'm sure. There's pictures of me as a little kid. I don't even recall them just holding up little fish. I grew up fishing a lot of family farm ponds. My great uncle
Nice.
had a pond that we had to walk through this like quarter-mile long road with cows all around it, and had to get over my fear of these huge 1,000-pound animals walking around me.
When
And
you're a little kid, that's
really got into bluegill, yeah, catching bluegill and bass in that pond, and um, I like grass fishing a lot, and that's really where it all started for me because there was the dam side of the pond that had a bunch of cattails on it, and I knew bass like to eat frogs, and that's
there
where
we
the
go.
frogs were on this pond. And me and my little Zebco, I just remember dropping it down in some of those cattails just straight from the bank and catching a 2-pounder when I was like maybe 7 years old, and
Wow,
that's when it all started to click for me.
that's awesome. That's so. I'm guessing you've continued fishing for bass, and I saw you catching some bluegill. I think I saw on your Facebook page the other day. So you've continued that
Yeah.
ever since. I take it, huh?
Oh yeah, I went for some crappie and bluegill yesterday. Tried to get some yellow perch too, just because I like to stock the freezer, and it's fun to cook up some of those fish sometimes and really appreciate what they offer you. Um,
No,
yeah, I also
definitely.
grew
Sorry.
up trout fishing a lot too. There
Nice.
was a period of time where my dad and I would go out into the streams of West Virginia and catch a lot of native brook trout and stalker rainbows. And so I'm kind of diversified in my fishing, but I really haven't done trout fishing in a while, honestly.
Gotcha. No, trout is something I want to focus more on here, especially as we get colder. Things start to settle down, and people go after them a little bit more, especially in our neck of the woods. So that's cool.
Oh yeah.
No, that's fantastic. So I saw your picture of you taking some of those bluegills home, and I know you said you were going to be cooking them up. How do you like to cook them? Because it seems like cooking the catch is a dying thing nowadays. It just doesn't seem like anyone does it. I know there's a lot of sport fishermen out there, but nobody catches them to take them home and fry them up.
Oh yeah. No. A lot of CPR, catch, picture, and release, but
Mhm.
sometimes you got to take some of those fish out. There's a lot of those big bluegills in this lake that I was fishing, and
Definitely.
there's plenty of them to go around, and it kind of makes the population maybe a little bit smaller on average for bluegill, but I think that's better for the bass. A little bit easier for them to eat if the
Sure.
bass
Sure.
population was bigger. But the way I like to prepare them is I just fillet them up, take the skin off of them, cover them in panko, dip them in eggs, cover them in panko,
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
get peanut oil. Peanut oil, and you got awesome fish sticks that way.
Oh, nice, nice. That does sound good, man. I like that. One
Yeah,
way
but when you post on these crappie and bluegill fishing pages on Facebook, those people are all about cooking the whole fish. I
yeah.
don't know if I could do that. I could eat it, but I don't know if my wife would touch it.
There's a reason they call them a panfish.
Yeah.
No, that's exactly it. What's really nice, I always liked about bluegills and the smaller panfish is, if you fillet them up, and, you kind of have a small fillet, and sometimes it can be really hard to cook them. But if you make ceviche out of them, which is, cooking through
Yeah.
acidity, that's a great way, and it's an
Yeah.
awesome thing to add some variety. So I make them like that once in a while. So that's really good. If you haven't
I
made
did
it,
that last year.
oh, nice, nice.
Yeah, it's delicious.
Yeah, for anybody listening, if you're not familiar with ceviche, you gotta, well, first of all, what planet are you living on? And second of all, you better try it because it is damn good. You can ceviche damn near any seafood. So shrimp or, it's something you catch or not, it doesn't matter, but it's great food regardless. So
It doesn't take that long either. It's pretty easy to make.
yeah, no, it really doesn't. I mean, talk about some delicious like fish tacos or something like that, man. That's the ticket. That's delicious stuff there.
Yeah.
So obviously you have a pretty decent Facebook page. You have a ton of content on there. I see you posting on there all the time. Tell everybody a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I've been really exploring social media with my fishing adventures lately. It really started, I don't know, maybe not quite a year ago. Started a Facebook page, Instagram. I've had a YouTube for a couple of years now, and I just got into TikTok. Um, but yeah, I try to take as many pictures as I can and just try to provide, some inspiration for people to do things. And now I got all kinds of friends telling me like, oh, what can I do? Where can I go to fish? That's so awesome. I want to take my kids. It's kind of cool to see that kind of effect that you have on people. And I'm getting
Definitely.
strangers messaging me like, hey, where's a good place to fish? Or what kind of baits can I use now? Or I had this one lady ask me from Kentucky. She was coming up to visit West Virginia. And she wanted to see the trees turning and take her boyfriend up here for some fishing. They love to fish. And she's like, oh, I don't know where to go. Where are some good places? And I kind of helped them out to have a good weekend together.
That's awesome. No, it's cool when you can touch some people, especially ones you've never known, but they follow you and they listen to you. No, that's really cool. That's awesome, man. Good for you. That's a cool feeling. So
yeah, it's definitely fun. Keeps me busy too. And it's not easy always trying to find new content to post, but we always find a way, don't we?
no, it's almost another full-time job. It can be demanding for sure, and it normally is. So what kind of content do you like to focus in, for people who aren't familiar with you? A, where do they find you? And B, what do you like to talk about?
Well, they can find me on all my platforms at Catching with Kyle. So that's TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook.
Cool.
Um, I started out focusing on YouTube and probably a little too much. It's very hard to crack into YouTube. You have to have the algorithm go just your way.
Yep.
Some videos you don't think are very good get hundreds of views, and other videos get like 20. So it's very confusing, frustrating too. And then when you're out on the water, it always seems like I can never have a very good day on the water while my GoPro is running. But if I have it, stashed away somewhere, or I just forget it or leave it at home,
Definitely.
I just slay them, and it's just not fair, It just doesn't work out.
You just got, I
But
guess you just have to always have it running. That might be the solution.
I know. And then you have to have battery packs. I got like 3 battery packs to run the things. Now I need to get a mic adapter. You can't even find those right now from COVID. Like they stopped producing them, they stopped shipping them. I think they just came back on the market.
No,
But
it's
you got to have that quality audio too.
it's funny you say that because I actually looked up the exact webcam I'm filming on here tonight. I went to look it up because somebody needed a recommendation for one, and I went to pull it up. And especially with COVID and everything, it's quadrupled in price, and it's not like a real expensive webcam, and you can't even get them. They're out of. I'm like, man, this is wild. Like, so I know exactly what you're talking about. That's par for the course with what's going on.
Yeah, YouTube's a little bit difficult with processing your videos, finding the clips that you like, and then putting them out there for everybody to watch. on this computer, it's a pretty old computer. I got it like refurbished for when I went back to school, and by now it's slow. It takes me like 8 to 10 hours to produce a video, and I know a lot of people can do it with like an hour or 2 hours. So maybe one day when I can upgrade the computer, I can start get back into YouTube a little bit more. But really, I try to focus on just fish release videos are pretty fun to do.
Sure. Yeah.
They get a lot of people like them, watching them swim away. It's always something different. They splash you, or they dart off, or they just kind of just meander away, just like, hey, it's not my first time. So those are pretty awesome. And scenic shots are nice too. I like to get some good scenic pictures and really just try to appreciate nature when I'm out there.
I think it's easy, and we've talked about this in past podcasts, but it's super easy to get out there and be so focused on catching a fish, and you forget that you're out there to enjoy it. You forget you're in nature. You can, and it sounds a little, out in the woo or whatever, but it's, you're out there to enjoy yourself. I mean, that's why I go. I mean, obviously if I catch a fish, that's fun, but like the whole process is supposed to be enjoyable. And I know I forget about that. I'm sure everyone else does too. So.
Yeah, that's a very important point. Having the emotional intelligence to really understand that, if you get frustrated while you're out there, if you're not catching fish, that you can take a step back and realize, okay, I'm frustrated. Oh, why am I frustrated? Well, I'm out here in the wild. I'm having a good time. I could be at work, or I could be sick in a hospital or something. I'm here right now, and let's make the most out of it.
Agreed.
I think some people get that, but some people still struggle with that too.
You make a great point. I couldn't have said it better myself, man. Exactly. That was awesome. No, I'm right there with you. Now we got to take the time we have and enjoy it and get out there and well, try and be better fishermen. So we'll see. We'll see about that. There might not be any hope left for me, but I think everybody else who's watching, they have a better shot. No, that's cool, man. That's fantastic. So I know we brought you on. I know you wanted to talk about some chatterbaits tonight, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say about them. So if you're cool, I'd say we should dive right into that.
Okay. Like I said, I grew up fishing, grassy ponds, and there's a lake near my parents' house that I fish with my dad a lot that has all kinds of grass and lily pads, and I kind of cut my teeth on chatterbaits there, and especially when I got out of college, they really became popular, and I could finally, afford to buy all kinds of fishing tackles. So
Sure.
Of course I had trout, but they really work well in that, for me, in that grassy flats kind of area. So if there's any kind of grass in a pond, a lake, river, I'm going to be throwing a chatterbait. Some people throw them in deeper water, but anything from like 0 to 5 feet, that's like the juice right there for chatterbaits.
Okay.
They're great. They imitate all kinds of prey. They come in all kinds of colors, sizes. You can get micros, like 8-ounce chatterbaits. You can get them up to, I think they make some brands up to like an ounce for that deeper water application. That's something I haven't toyed with, but I almost exclusively use them for very shallow water, especially if it has grass. If there's not grass in there, if it's rocky, I'm probably going to go with something like a crankbait, lipless crankbait or something like that, even a drop shot. But if there's grass, definitely. If there's some wood cover, some overhanging branches near the bank, you can use a chatterbait and skip it up under there. That's pretty good too.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, I have several.
Sorry, we have a little bit of a lag, just realizing. So.
Yeah, I'm probably talking too fast.
No, you're good. You're good. I'm talking over top of you here on my side, so I'm just going to shut the hell up and let you talk. I want you to tell us, man. This is awesome. So keep on going.
So, there's all kinds of chatterbaits in the market, or bladed jigs, if you want to call them. The chatterbait's more of a brand name from Z-Man. And I've tried several brands, and I mean, I'm not sponsored by anybody at all, but I really just go with the Z-Mans, especially the Project Z. I don't know how well you can see these two right here. These
they're coming through fine.
Two variations of green pumpkin, and they have the black blades. They have a little bit of shine to them, but those are my go-to colors. And I like to go with a 3/8 ounce. Half ounce for me in that 0 to 5 feet, it tends to get to the bottom a little bit too much and catch too much of that grass. I'd rather just take the top of it.
Gotcha.
3/8 ounces is like the best for me, the way I fish it. I also have a third color that I'll go to, and this is really all that I use. And this is a Ghost Pearl, I believe it is. So it's got a shiny blade on the front. Really a shad imitator, especially if you have like gizzard shad. That's like the exact same size as they are, especially when you put a trailer on it.
Gotcha.
And I like the Project Z version of the Chatterbait. It's just a little bit different, a little bit pricier than the original ones, but they're less expensive than the Jackhammer.
Okay.
You know, the Jackhammer is what, like 16 bucks, 15 bucks?
Yeah, they're pricey.
And these are 8, I think.
Gotcha.
So that's not too bad. But they have a much stouter upgraded mustad hook, while as the original Chatterbaits, they have like a generic hook to them, and a lot of people tend to roll the points on them. Or some people say they bend out the hooks, but I don't know if they're banging them into rocks or docks. Another benefit of the Project Z is it's got a version that has a weed guard on it. So if you see this one's perfect for those shad lakes when there's not a lot of grass. I can skip this under docks or under overhanging brush and not have to worry about it getting snagged, or cast it into a laydown and get it out. They will snag sometimes, but if you throw the version without the weed guard, you're going to get snagged all the time. It's not worth throwing around brush at all. Never. You can do it if you keep it high enough in the water column, if you keep your rod tip up and you know exactly where the branches are. But most of the time, without the weed guard, you will get hung up. And it's not really a weed guard either. It's more of a brush guard.
Sure.
Now, when I was down in Gunnersville, I was throwing a swim jig a lot, and I know your last guest talked about that, swim jigs, and they do a pretty good job of getting through that grass and parting it away. But I was getting it still stuck on the swim jig and fouling a cast every once in a while. But with a chatterbait, you can usually feel when you're catching it because the blade will stop vibrating as much, and you can rip it out of that grass a little bit easier, and you can keep most of your retrieve clean, and that way more productive.
Gotcha. No, that's good. That's great info. I think we should back up just a second for those who aren't super in the know. Why don't we try and break down what the chatterbait actually is? Because so if somebody looking at it might just say, well, that just looks like a jig with a weed guard on it. What's so special about that? So maybe we should talk. We'll just get into the weeds a little bit, no pun intended here, and just kind of break it down and just see exactly what it is.
All right, so it does have a jig head, and they call it a bladed jig for a reason. There's a blade on the front of the head. When you go to retrieve it, the blade swings back and forth, clacking on each side of the lead head.
Gotcha.
Making noise. Now, some of the jackhammers, I think there's a certain version that's actually tungsten, if I'm correct, and it'll make a little bit different sound. So every brand and every style you get, and actually every size, will have a slightly different, profile in the water. It'll make it'll give off different waves for the bass's lateral lines, and just the noise of it clacking on the side will be different depending on the size of the head.
Sure.
These Project Z's, they have eyes built into them, which is kind of not something the other Z-Mans have, and it's got a thinner head on them. Usually the other Z-Mans have a little bit rounder head. So it doesn't contact as much. There's a little bit wider of a swing on this. And it feels different, and it does sound different when you're retrieving it.
No, that's awesome. So you like to put this right into the grassy mats or somewhere it's got a lot of grass cover, or anywhere realistically that has a lot of cover that you're afraid of getting hung up on, but you can try and pull it through.
Yeah. I mean, even one without the brush or weed guard, if you want to call it that, I'll throw it. I won't throw it right on top of a mat. I won't use it like a top water or anything. I'll throw it into open water. But if there's grass clumps in that water, I'll work it by those grass clumps, or I'll hang up on the side of them, and then I can use my rod, and I can, really whip that rod and get that lure to pop out. And when it pops out, that change of direction and the change of pace of the lure is when that bass will come and smack it.
Gotcha. Okay. So you're saying right when you get hung up on a weed or something, you're stuck on the side, you're gonna try and get that to pop right out and kind of move in another direction that it's not, kind of like a fish spinning around and going a different direction. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, if you just keep on reeling it with when the blade's not kicking very hard, you're just not really being having a productive cast. Some people will just reel them all the way in with the grass on it. You could just rip that off and keep going. That's when they strike it. And
Gotcha.
if they're lily pads, if there's a lily pad field and there's some gaps in between the lily pads, I'll throw it in there. And the regular version is fine with that, but that's when the brush guard one is very nice because those stems on those lily pads are very thick. And you can bounce off them a lot easier with that brush guard. So you can throw it right up into a clump of these thick lily pads and just work it underneath those lily pads, and you can get some nice strikes, especially earlier in the year when the pads haven't grown all the way to the surface yet. They're still under the water a little bit. Just working it just on the very tops of those lily pads and around them, it's dynamite.
No, that's awesome. Okay. Do you have a choice of a trailer to pair with this?
I think everyone's got, a preference for trailers they like. I mean, you can pretty much just throw about anything. I've seen them with like a Cinco on the back. I think that person was kind of desperate, just trying something different, but hey, it'll work.
Sure.
Personally, I prefer like a more minnow or shad style trailer. Some people like crawls, and I've tried that before. There's some benefits to it. So when you have it on, you put it the flappers like vertical rather than horizontal. When it's going through the water column, it creates a bigger profile, and it gives the bass something a little bit easier to see. It looks more like a bluegill, and I understand that concept. But the problem with that is sometimes the skirts are too long.
Yeah.
And the skirt material and the dynamics of the water going around the lure will stop those tentacles or pinchers from flapping. So it's kind of a dead action. There's probably times when that'll outfish something else. I mean, there's no rules in bass fishing, as we all know, or fishing in general.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's not one of my go-tos. My go-to is a paddle tail. So this is a 3-inch. I think this is a Gambler Little Easy. I mean, it matches perfect with this
Definitely
pearl. I mean, it's amazing, and it's just the right size where when you put that on there, that tail will kick like crazy on the back. Now you don't always want it to kick like crazy, so sometimes you can cut off the very back, and it'll just have a nice little waggle to it.
Little wobble, yeah. Gotcha.
And you can put on a larger boot tail if you want. But then I personally, I don't like that. It's just too big of a profile and it gets a little bit harder to fish the way I like to fish them. So I try to stay with that smaller profile and keep the weight down. Because the bigger plastics you put on there, people think, I need a 1/2 ounce chatterbait, but then you put on a trailer that, these suckers are kind of heavy.
They have weight for sure.
So you're getting up to like 3/4 of an ounce for your fishing lure, and you're getting hung up in that grass, and it's getting hard to rip it out. So if you can stay to those smaller trailers, then you can do a little bit better of keeping it up in the water column. A couple other ones I like. Some people use like a soft jerk bait, and they usually have a really soft tail, so they really waggle back and forth real easy. And sometimes their profile, real slender profile with thick sidewalls on it, will create like a rocking motion.
Gotcha.
A little bit of a rocking motion. And some of these chatterbaits or bladed jigs already hunt a little bit when you're reeling them in, especially at a faster speed. And this gives it an extra little wobble side to side. So sometimes that's a ticket right there. That's one reason I go to the boot tail and I cut off the ends of the boots just to get a little bit different action on them. But sometimes these can also create a pretty big profile. Like this one in particular, I'll have to bite off like the first 1/2 inch of this bait just for it to thread on properly. And most of the soft jerk baits have a hook pocket, and so you don't have a lot of beef or a lot of meat to really stick the hook in. So when you get bites, you tend to go through these pretty quickly. They'll pull off, and then you can go with something a little bit smaller.
Oh yeah.
A small jerk bait, and that can be money too when you're going for that smaller profile, but you still want to have that paddle. those are the trailers I like to use.
Nice. No, I think you bring a good point, and it's all about, as we know, but I think we always forget is, it's all about the presentation, and obviously, mimicking the dying fish, I think is kind of like the grail of getting the fish. That's as far as I'm concerned. So, like you said, if you can kind of recreate that wobble, so side to side, back and forth, whatever it might be, I think you're onto something. I think that's a great point.
Yeah, and speaking of imitating a dying fish or even maybe a crawdad, there's different ways you can retrieve these. Um, a lot of people catch them just fine, just casting it out and reeling it back in. And sometimes, they might get into a little bit of grass, they don't realize it, and they get it off there, and they'll get bites. And I catch a lot of good fish doing that too. But a couple of ways I like to fish them, especially early in the year, is you just cast it out and lift and drop it or yo-yo it back. So you just let it drop to the bottom and you lift up until you feel that blade just starting to sputter just a few times. And you drop it on slack line, let it drop straight back into the grass. And especially early in the year, the grass isn't real strong.
Yeah.
Isn't real healthy. So it's a little bit easier to get in and out of that grass. So when you lift it back up and you pick it back up, you're popping out of that little bit of grass and it's showing itself again. And any bass nearby, they take that opportunity, that change of pace to lash out at that. So it looks like, maybe a bluegill struggling or some sort of shiner or a crawdad darting away real quick.
Mm-hmm.
You can get some good fish doing that too. Another way is, like I mentioned before, ripping it out of the grass. You're just reeling it just slow enough to where you're starting to get into the grass, just the tops of it. When you feel it, you pop it out and keep reeling. On a straight retrieve, sometimes they'll come up behind it and just bump it. And if you keep reeling, sometimes they'll come back, but more often than not, they're not going to come back and hit it again. So what I like to do is I drop it immediately on slack line, drop straight to the bottom, and they'll come down, they'll suck it up. Because when they go to hit it that first time, they're just trying to stun it. That's what they do with their prey a lot of the times. If they're not real sure if they want to eat it or commit to it, they'll bump it, see how it reacts.
Gotcha.
I mean, if it becomes an easy prey for it and falls straight down, it's going to eat it. I catch some good fish doing that too.
That's a great point. I haven't heard anybody talk about that. That's an awesome point. I like that a lot. Now, obviously we're talking about a lot of feeling here. You have the vibration of the blade in the front. You have, just as we're talking, if you're trying to feel the bump, if there is one of a bass bumping into it. What kind of a rod do you normally pair this with?
Well, that's also up for interpretation and really personal preference. I went to Bass University a little over a year ago, and I talked to Jordan Lee just after he won. Where was he at? Was it Okeechobee? Yeah. Well, anyway, he was fishing shallow grass with chatterbaits and burner worms, and he swears that you have to use a fast action rod and like braid to fluorocarbon or straight fluorocarbon. And that works for a lot of people because that faster rod, when you get into that grass, it's stiffer. That fast action means it doesn't bend as far down the rod. So you can rip it out of that grass a lot easier. And if you're using a graphite rod, you're going to have that extra feel. And you can, like any kind of grass that touches that blade at all, you're going to feel it and you can rip it out. But the problem with that, in my experience, is, I've tried to use it. I've tried to do it that way. I pull that bait away from the fish. I lose a lot of fish. I hook into them for a second and I lose them. I was losing a lot of fish because I think I was pulling that out and like just ripping their like a bigger hole in their mouth, or just barely skin hooking the edge of their lips. I went to a glass composite rod, so like they don't really tell you the exact composition, but you could say like 50-50 graphite with the top section being glass.
Okay.
I went to that for a while, and I like that a lot, paired with like a 18 to 20 pound mono. And I was just, when they hit it, they get it like in the very roof of their mouth, the very back. You get a real good meaty hook set into them most of the time because you don't feel as much using that rod. So sometimes it's a little hard to tell when you're starting to get fouled, and it's a little bit harder to slow reel when you're in the colder months because it's hard to feel that blade moving. But, when they eat it, that's a little bit hard to tell. So they get a real good, bite into it, and you can get a pretty solid hook set into them too because of the graphite section of the rod. That's typically what I use. Unfortunately, I ended up breaking my composite rod in the truck door. So
that's tragic.
I recently went back to a graphite rod, and it's a moderate fast action, meaning it bends more, probably like not quite 50% of the way down when it loads up. Probably it goes 35% of the rod and it starts to bend.
Yeah.
But it's a way more sensitive than my glass rod, my composite rod. So I can feel every little kick of that blade. And that might be something good, when these water temperatures start to drop. When I start to slow roll that chatterbait, I can make sure that I'm going as slow as I can, and I know that blade's going. But it's slow enough, even though I can feel everything, it's slow enough, the action is slow enough where it bends enough. When I get a bite, it's going to load up into that fish, and I'm not going to rip that lure out of its mouth too soon.
Yeah, I gotcha. No, that's super interesting. And obviously, there's a ton of nuance here with rod selection and material and all that. But that at least gives somebody at least a guide to start with, and they can kind of take it from there and decide what they like the most. So I always try and pin it down at least to some extent, and we can, then the listeners can take it from that. And
now these are I'm talking in the reference of like bait casting rods. Going back to the composite rod, if you get buried up into some grass, it's hard to rip out unless you're using straight braid. You have to really just grab the handle and give it a couple good whacks to really get to come out. With the fast rod, it's a lot easier. But yeah, I wouldn't typically throw these on a spinning rod. I know a lot of people do, or that's what they like to use. That's what they feel comfortable with. And you can do it. They make chatterbaits that are small enough to where you can throw them on a spinning rod. I usually, when I'm fishing around this grass and these lily pads, I tighten down the drag as much as possible. And that's the drags on spinning reels are typically made for like finesse applications.
Mm-hmm.
So you want some give with that lighter line. They're not really made for, really cranking down and forcing a 5-pounder out of some grass and lily pads. So that's kind of a disadvantage, but you can most certainly use a spinning reel or spinning rod for chatterbaits if you'd like. It's not my go-to, but it's definitely doable. They just don't make like composite rods, I don't think, maybe they do, but I don't know about them.
I'm sure somebody probably does out there with all the companies that make rods.
Salt water, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. No, okay. Well, that I think really gives a great overview for somebody who wants to try these and just kind of get their hands dirty and decide if this is something they want to keep fishing with or if they like it. And all. No, this has been all great info, man. So thanks for all that. Is there anything else you want to, leave the audience with as far as regarding, chatterbaits at all?
No, I think I pretty much covered everything. I mean, I have one of these tied on all the time. Always have them in my box, couple different colors. I don't go, I don't get too crazy. Like I have to have chartreuse and white and black and blue and this shade of green. Just, green pumpkin. If you could only afford green pumpkin, just get green pumpkin. Whatever you have confidence in. And as long as you throw it and throw it and throw it, no matter what color you pick, you're going to catch some bass.
Nice. Awesome. Well, man, I think we covered chatterbaits pretty well. I definitely want to thank you for coming on tonight. If you would tell everybody again where they can find you, Facebook, YouTube, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so I have Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and I have a TikTok. That's not too bad, honestly.
No, I haven't branched into TikTok yet. I don't know if I ever will.
Yeah, there's a lot of younger people are using it, and I really want to reach those kids and show them, there's some fishing opportunities for them and get them interested in the sport. But yeah, you can get to me at all those at Catching with Kyle.
Cool.
Yeah.
No,
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, this has been awesome, man. I definitely appreciate you coming on and sharing all this with us. This was a blast. You know what? You and I are close enough. We might have to together and do some fishing together. So
that's what I was thinking.
we'll have to put that together here in the near future before it gets too cold, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're chewing right now with the water temperatures dropping.
Oh, well, perfect, man. We're going to go ahead and wrap this one up here. So again, thank you for coming on, and I'll make sure to leave links to all your social stuff there in the links, and leave that for the guys who want to follow you.
All right, I appreciate it, Nate. It was good to meet you.
Definitely, man. Hey, thanks for coming on tonight.
Take it easy. Tight lines.